we'll get into this. This is all going to be in this here article. So these are the things that have happened since then. Joshua Ziminski is the man who shot his pistol in the air during the Kenosha riots moments before Rittenhouse shot and killed Joseph Rosenbaum. He also lit at least one fire on August 25th, 2020, and obstructed a police investigation. Kenosha police asked Kenosha DA Michael Gravely, a Democrat, to charge Ziminski with 1. second-degree recklessly endangering safety, 2. resisting and obstructing an officer, 3. disorderly conduct, 4. bail jumping, and 5. arson. Gravely's office charged Ziminski with only 1 count of misdemeanor disorderly conduct. After community outrage, the office did add felony arson to the charges. We'll go ahead and give a cheers to Sally in the chat. How goes it? On August 26, 2022, while out on bail for riot-related crimes, Ziminski and his wife burglarized and robbed a man at knife point, took him around the city to ATMs with the intent to steal the man's money. He was charged with 6 felonies and 1 misdemeanor. He faced many decades in prison. Today, which I think this may have been yesterday. Let me look at the date. May 30th. Yeah, this was yesterday. Today, Kenosha County Prosecutor Thomas Claire Binger dismissed all of the criminal charges from August 25th, 2020. He made a plea deal with Ziminski that included both of these felony files. Today in court, Ziminski pleaded guilty to 1 count of armed robbery and 1 count of armed burglary. Dismissed but read in were the following charges. Felony arson, dismissed. Felony intimidation of a victim, dismissed. Felony false imprisonment, dismissed. Felony unauthorized use of a person's identifying information or documents, dismissed. Felony bail jumping, dismissed. Felony arson, dismissed. Disorderly conduct, use of a dangerous weapon, dismissed. Battery, dismissed. Obstructing an officer, dismissed. Thomas Claire Binger will recommend as part of the deal that Ziminski only spends 5 years behind bars, followed by 5 years of extended supervision. Kenosha County Circuit Court Judge Bruce Schrader accepted Ziminski's 2 guilty pleas and dismissed the remainder of the charges. Although Schrader accepted the plea, he's not bound by the prosecutor's recommendation. He can sentence Ziminski up to 20 years in prison. Schroeder then revoked Ziminski's bail again. Now, let me just stop right there for just a moment and say that there are also pre-sentencing investigations that typically happen in these kind of cases. And if it's determined that he has a long enough criminal history, Schrader can go really tough on him. However, I don't know how many of you out there were following the recent, Zachariah Anderson trial. I mean, look, I actually don't like Bruce Schrader. He was okay in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, but even as okay as he was, he let Thomas Claire Binger and old Lunchbox, the other prosecutor, get away with so many shenanigans. He admonished them for mentioning Fifth Amendment and First Amendment protections that Kyle Rittenhouse have, but he didn't go any further. He didn't sanction them. He didn't stop them from other shenanigans they were trying to pull. And ultimately, even though he told them to stop, they would continue and then he would cave. So I'm not a big fan of Bruce Schrader. Word is, he's hard on sentencing. So like in the Zachariah Anderson trial, where there was no body, no evidence, very little of a motive, and yet this man still somehow was found guilty of murder, he gave him a life sentence. So we'll see. By the way, that was life sentence without victim impact statement, or the family impact statements being allowed to be read. Kenosha County Court. Okay, I already read that part. Zeminski's mother, who was mocking the judge, this lady here on the right, during the proceedings, had to be warned several times by a deputy not to talk to Josh, who was present in court today. She's the one who posted the $13,000 bail for her son months ago. Zeminski will be sentenced on July 13th. Circle that date on your calendars, folks. July 13th, 2023. Also in court today was Josh's wife, Kelly. She received a similar plea deal, and Thomas Claire Binger, will recommend 3 years in prison with 3 years extended supervision. She will be sentenced on July 13th also, and also had her bail revoked. And that's Kelly Zeminski there pictured. Look, folks. Aside from my previous objections to Judge Bruce Schrader, Thomas Claire Binger, also known as Fluffer Boy, that was a nickname that came out in the trial that he had attached to his email accounts. Fluffer Boy. Thomas Claire Binger. The man who stood up in court and admonished Kyle Rittenhouse for trying to do good, admonished him for, quote, faking being a medic, even though he'd had lifeguard training, who admonished Kyle Rittenhouse for the type of gun he used, for the way he carried his gun, who essentially drove home. And here's another part of the story here. Dominic Black, Kyle Rittenhouse's friend who straw purchased him the gun. I need an update on this story, by the way. If Kenosha County if you're watching, I need an update. Did Dominic Black ever report? Dominic Black fled from police on a motorcycle, and yeah, he's in jail, or was supposed to be in jail. So, it would be nice to know what happened to Dominic Black, but Thomas Claire Binger threw the book at Dominic Black. Huh? Sorry, Sally, I'm not sure what exactly you're asking for. If you're looking for me, if you think I should post a link to my channel, I can do that real quick. But yeah, thanks. And by the way, everybody, go to YouTube and find Talk with Sally. Sally's an amazing gardener and will sometimes do some exercise streams. But yeah, her garden's coming along nicely, especially that beautiful pond. Sorry, just posting the link to this stream here. All right. So, this Binger guy, Thomas Claire Binger, I mean, look, go to the Kenosha County Eye and just read up a little bit about Thomas Claire Binger. He was living with a judge at one point. But yeah, he tried to throw the book at Dominic Black, tried to throw the book at Kyle Rittenhouse, and yet here is this dangerous rioter known for starting fires, threatening people, pointing his gun, firing his gun up in the air. Kyle Rittenhouse and Dominic Black couldn't do anything right with a gun, yet this guy can wave his gun around, shoot it in the air, risking people's lives, setting things on fire, setting the whole town square on fire, and hanging out with this Joseph Rosenbaum character who's chasing people, getting into fights, and winds up dead. No, that guy's fine. Give him 5 years and then let him out. 5 years. 5 years for menacing the town. You know, the whole riot was about Jacob Blake. Would you have been this lenient to Jacob Blake? I wouldn't have, but had they arrested Jacob Blake that day successfully without shooting him in the back, would you have been this lenient on him? Why does this character, Joshua Zeminski, and his wife Kelly, why do they get to menace the town? Why do they get to kidnap a guy? Well, I guess there's 5 years of justice for the kidnapping, but nothing on the riots. Nothing on the shooting the gun up in the air. Nothing for the arson. Nothing for the community of Kenosha, Wisconsin. If I lived in Wisconsin and I saw the miscarriage of justice that's being dealt out by this Kenosha District Attorney's Office, I would be furious. I am furious. You know, you're a little far out suburb of Chicago that just happens to be tucked away in the nowheresville of Wisconsin. And you got this small town politics, rub my back, I rub yours. DA Michael Gravely and prosecutor Thomas Claire Binger are a couple of fucking scumbags. There, I said it. So fuck you, Thomas Claire Binger. You're the asshole of the week. For me. We have other news stories to cover, other assholes to talk about, but it upsets me how you stood up there during the Kyle Rittenhouse trial and during the Dominic Black case and talked about how evil guns were. How, oh yeah, you should just fight with your fists. You should, and your buddy Krause, you should just take a beating. And yet, Joshua Zeminski gets to walk around with a loaded gun, fire it in the air, and then months later kidnap a man and force him to use his debit card at ATMs. And you give him a 5-year slap on the wrist. And that doesn't even, I'm not even mentioning he's intimidating court witnesses on the courthouse steps. The bold disrespect for the legal process. The bold disrespect for the court of law and for the idea of justice, that he would walk up to a material witness against him in a felony criminal case and try to intimidate them out of testifying. And you're going to let that man walk free with a slap on the wrist after 5 years. Now, the one thing about this entire case that to me is a ray of sunshine in the darkness is the 5 years supervised probation. Because I know once this motherfucker, and literal motherfucker, I mean, why else is his mom crying for him today in court and trying to talk to him against the bailiff and judge's orders? This motherfucker won't be able to stay out of trouble for 5 years. You know it. I know it. He's going to wind up back in prison. But to me, you should have just gave him the time for the arson, for the firing a dangerous weapon, for the rioting, for the destruction, for the madness and the havoc he wreaked on August 25th, 2020. That was part of a chaotic hell that wound up with 2 people dead, 1 person shot, and many other people, including Kyle Rittenhouse, having their lives changed forever. I know Nathan DeBruin will never forget that night. So, again, shout out to Photo Chad. Mr. Poopy Butthole 69 in the chat. Welcome. Good seeing you. Cheers. Yeah, he'll definitely break probation. It sucks that that's what it's going to take to get him behind bars for the amount of time he really should be behind bars. I hope it's not. I hope and pray that it's not another violent act that winds up him pointing his gun at someone else. I hope he doesn't harm someone. But yeah, he's not going to be able to obey the law for 5 years. So yeah, fuck you, Kenosha County District Attorney's Office, Michael Gravely, and Thomas Claire Binger. Asshole of the Week, Thomas Claire Binger. And other legal